Welcome to Talking About Movies and Stuff. I'm Alex Light with Sparky3. Hopefully you're having a phenomenal day. Whatever day you are listening or perhaps watching this podcast, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Sparky3. Give us a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, be a friend, tell a friend that you're listening. If this is your first time here, just go ahead and first say this up front. Full-blown spoilers. If you're here, I'm assuming you'd want to hear spoilers. I'm assuming you just want to hear someone's thoughts. I'm not going to do two different versions. That's not what we do here at this show. Also, if it's your first time here, don't have high expectations for this show. As this show continues to build, I will continue to push that narrative because here at Sparky3, talking about movies and stuff is literally just a fun side project. Our main focuses is, of course, Lighthearted Gamers, AniMan Plus, and Terrible Football Show, all three of those being weekly shows. Make sure to give them a listen. We'd appreciate that. This is, like I said, just for fun. So don't have a ton of expectations. Episodes will come out when they come out. We don't have an exact time frame or anything. So for today's episode, I'm actually flying solo, and there's a reason why I'm flying solo. It's because the movie that I'm going to be talking about is Halloween Kills, as you can see in the title. And when it comes to me and all my boys that do the podcast stuff, and even outside the podcast stuff, really I'm the only Halloween diehard out of all my friends. Now for this movie, I did go to see it with John, who was on the first Talking About Movies and Stuff for Venom 2, and who's one of my he's more or less a co-host at this point at Lighthearted Gamers, just not every single episode, just most of the time. But, you know, he had some stuff to take care of today, and he decided to set out for this because he's not a massive fan of the franchise. He just went just to have a good time. But like I said, I am a huge fan of Halloween franchise, and I've got some very mixed opinions on Halloween Kills. If you're listening to this, I can safely assume that you're probably a Halloween fan. But just on the slim chance you're not a diehard fan and you don't fully know, I guess, the timeline that we're dealing with here for Kills, allow me to briefly explain it and waste everyone's time. So this is, of course, the third movie of the David Gordon Green trilogy that he is directing. The third movie, though, in the current timeline that we're dealing with. So Halloween is split into three main timelines now, all, of course, originating from Halloween 1978. The first timeline goes to Halloween 2, 1981, then 4, 5, and 6. The other timeline goes from the first one to H2O to Resurrection, and now this newest timeline is going from the first one to Halloween 2018 to Halloween Kills, and then Halloween Ends that comes out next year. Coming into Halloween 2018, I had sky-high expectations. Sky high. I was so pumped for that movie. I was so ready. There were so many things about it that they seemed like they were going to do right. The original shape was coming back, which of course is Nick Castle, John Carpenter and his son coming back to do the score. Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, coming back. I had a lot of expectations for this show. John Carpenter not directing, but he is an executive producer, as well as Jamie Lee. So I had a lot of hope. Of course, when it comes to, Nick Castle coming back, obviously the majority of, pretty much 99% of the movie is by James Jude Courtney. The Shape did have one great shot of, up in the window of the house looking down on Laurie. But going into that movie, like I said, I had sky-high expectations, and I was kind of let down leaving the theater. It was still a very good movie. I still very much enjoyed it. I feel like it did a lot of things absolutely perfect that you would want out of a Halloween movie. But there were some things that they really kind of fell short on, like the script writing, I feel like was kind of lackluster, which, for any sort of horror slasher movie, let's be honest, the script is usually never super fantastic anyway. When we're going to these types of movies, we're going for kills, we're going for this tension and the scare, etc. And that was another thing that the movie did not really do right, was I don't feel like it delivered the tension. It had a couple of moments where it kind of, got you a little tense, but nothing like what obviously the original. The original still stands far above pretty much every other movie. So coming into this movie, I had my expectations pretty low, just because I didn't want to be disappointed. I kept it pretty mid-range. I felt myself getting more and more excited to see the movie over the past couple days, but I was still trying to temper the expectations. And coming out of this movie, I feel disappointed. I feel it's sad because of how low I felt like I had my expectations. Maybe I didn't have it as low as I thought, because I don't think it's a terrible movie that you should just avoid. So maybe my expectations weren't as low as I wanted, but I definitely left the theater feeling disappointed. Now let's talk about what was done right. What was done right was absolutely the title of the movie, Halloween Kills. The kills are fantastic. Like if you're a fan of Carnage candy, you're gonna love the kills in this movie. You really get to see Michael's brutality, which was kind of nice to see the brutality, because you know in the first movie there were some really brutal things that you didn't fully get to see. Like, you know, obviously the most brutal kill in the first movie, in my opinion, was the decapitated cop who got his head turned into a jack-o'-lantern. Obviously, you didn't get to see that for fair reasons. But in this movie, you get to see a little bit more of him just being very brutal and just not giving a fuck. So that was really cool. I mean, there was legitimately some just absolute brutality of Michael just wanting to go on this killing spree. Yeah, I also shout out to the fact that you do get to see that head again in this movie. You know, the jack-o'-lantern head. Shout out to that. Now, another thing that they did phenomenal was the first probably 15 to 20 minutes of the movie. I hate to say this because I don't want to turn people off from seeing the movie, but the first like 15 to 20 minutes was potentially the best part of the movie. And the reason why is because they took it back to 1978, and the way it was directed, like the filter they kind of had on it, the attention to detail for the environment around and everything, for Michael, etc., for the officers' uniforms, everything was fantastic attention to detail. And the reason why they went back to 1978 was to kind of tie up some knots for the first movie that was just kind of alluded to, because obviously like I said, in this timeline it goes from 78 to 2018. There is nothing else in between. So, you know, for going back, you know, you get to see Officer Hawkins, who, you know, was stabbed in the first movie. He survives, by the way. He does survive. He is in this movie. He is alive. He's pretty much in the hospital the entire time. He was found by Allison's boyfriend. I think it's is it Cameron? I don't know. You know, obviously he's just a side character, but I think it's Allison's boyfriend. You know, he's trying to call his friend, who of course we know got brutally murdered on the gate. And then he finds Sheriff Hawkins and calls an ambulance to give him some help. So we get to see Sheriff Hawkins, you know, back in 78, because, you know, it was talked about in the in the 2018 movie that he's the one that brought Michael in, or caught Michael, whatever. And you get to see a young version of him trying to find Michael with his partner. He accidentally shoots his partner when Michael attacks his partner, because they go into the Myers house. And, you know, his partner, you know, leading up to that, his partner talks about how he was friends with Michael as a kid, forcefully. His mom just kind of felt bad for the Myers, I guess, and made her son go over and play with Michael. Michael never really wanted to. Michael was a weird kid, obviously. I mean, killed his sister at 6 years old. And, you know, so there was the moment of where he was talking about how Michael would always just stare out the window and stuff. So this guy goes up, you know, to that room, and he's standing at the same window, you know, just, you know, thinking. He's like, Haddonfield, you know, the town where nothing exciting happens. And he looks down, he sees fresh boot prints, and he's just like, oh shit. And then Michael quickly comes out of the closet, starts trying to choke him. Sheriff Hawkins accidentally shoots his partner trying to shoot Michael, and then that's when Michael goes downstairs and is surrounded by the police. You do get to see a Dr. Loomis. I'm kind of curious who did that stand-in for Loomis. I will say that I am kind of curious of that, because whoever did the voice for it was okay. I don't know if that was the actual person voicing Loomis, or they managed to get some voice stuff from past movies and kind of piece it all together, but kind of looked like him, you know. So overall, I feel like they portrayed Loomis pretty well in that situation. Obviously, Donald Pleasance is very long past. I think it was like, when Curse of Michael Myers came out, so like 94, 95. So, you know, whoever did the stand-in for Loomis, great job there. Assuming it was a stand-in, you know, technology's come a long way, so I don't know how they handled that. But you basically get to see the moment of when Michael was captured by the police. And then from there, that's when you get to see the brutal scene that we've seen in the trailers, with the firefighters, you know, going out to Laurie's house, and Michael just murdering everyone. 11 people dead there, and then just went on a massive killing spree from there. Killed the random elderly couple that we see in the trailers as well, by one stabbing a light through her throat and just slamming the other dude's head up against you know, the wall continuously, and just cutting his throat and stuff. And then the brutality again in this moment, the husband, I mean, he's basically already dead, and he's leaned over a table. Michael stabs him like shit, like 6 times. Michael just stabs him once with a knife, leaves the knife in, turns around, gets another knife, stabs him again, gets another knife, stabs him again, just keeps on going. So again, The first 20 minutes with that whole pass shot, fantastic. The kills, fantastic. I mean, everything with the kills in this movie are just absolutely brutal, with eye gouging, you know, a knife straight to the eye. I mean, it's, you know, it's fantastic. Cameron had a brutal death, absolutely brutal. I mean, you know, just continuously having like wooden railings from the stairs, just like being stabbed into his throat. He's still barely alive somehow, and then he gets his neck snapped. I mean, it's like Michael is full blown unhinged. Now, those are the majority of the good things. It's like the beginning of the movie and the kills, basically. Everything after that kind of fell short for me. So back to the writing. The writing in this movie, I just don't think was super great in terms of the actual scripting. Very cringy, you know. It's just like, I understand this is a horror movie, and there's a lot of cringe that, you know, that we as horror movie fans can accept in doses, right? Because it's expected. It's going to be in the movie, but it's just like over the top cringe of like these lines of "evil must die tonight" and just stuff like that. And just the way, like, let's say Tommy Doyle, you know, with this movie, you get a lot of returning characters from the first movie. The nurse that was with Loomis at the beginning, Lindy, I don't remember her name, but it was the little girl that was being babysit by Anne Brackett, the one that was murdered in the car in the first one. Annie, yes. Annie was murdered in the car, and then Lindy, whichever one, goes over to Laurie's house, who was babysitting Tommy Doyle, of course. And you also get to see, you know, Lonnie, another character that had an appearance in that past bit that we got at the beginning. And basically, once people kind of see like, oh shit, there's been murders on this street. Oh shit, hey, there was the funny kid from the babysitter in the first movie. That kid was hilarious. Get to see him again very briefly. Then, you know, that they're all at the bar or whatever, and then that's when you kind of start to begin the Haddonfield manhunt, kind of like what you had in Halloween 4, where there was basically a manhunt for Michael. You kind of get the same bit of that, but like to an extreme. So once they kind of make the decision, like you know, where they're going to manhunt, is because two characters, they're dressed up as a nurse and a doctor, who you actually see in the first movie very briefly. Like, so that's a nice little tie-in of continuing what happened from the first one. Because in the first movie, when Michael's literally just walking through the neighborhood and just murdering one person after another, like nothing, whatever, you see when he's walking, it's like, I think it's like behind his shoulder, if I remember correctly, this doctor and this nurse, these two people getting in their car to leave for a party. Yeah, that's them. They're in this. They go to leave the bar because they see that all these murders happened on their street. And once the female gets into the car, that's when she thought Michael was in the back seat. You know, Tommy comes out there with old Huckleberry, which is a baseball bat that was hanging up in the bar. You know, Tommy delivering some cringy lines like, "Oh, I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him." Like, come on, people don't talk like that. Let's be real. You know, the car starts driving off. The car ends up crashing. Michael escapes. Then you get a shot where it's not Michael. It is another escaped inmate from that bus, because there was a brief little like news report when they were in the bar talking about how an inmate escaped. So that inmate is one of the areas where I feel like this movie really fell short. There was between that scene there, which that kicked off the manhunt for Michael, because at this point they're like, okay, Michael is alive, you know, let's hunt him down. So there was that tidbit, and then that inmate comes back because this inmate ends up getting into the hospital where everyone's locked down in this hospital at this point. This is where Laurie's at. She has, you know, cuts in her stomach. That's pretty hardcore. They had to sew up and everything. Karen is there. That's where you get the news that Michael's alive that we see in the trailer. You know, the inmate ends up getting into the hospital because also he just wants help. Like, this dude is beating on the glass like, please help me, please help me. And everyone just assumes it's Michael, and everyone in the damn hospital, doctors included, is trying to chase this guy to kill him because they're assuming it's Michael. This was like a legitimate, like a 10-minute waste of absolute time, in my opinion. This was irrelevant for the story. The only part of relevance that I saw with this is that it just delivered that Michael being in this town drove these people insane to the point where they just assume one person is Michael and just hunting him down. that was completely irrelevant to me. That was the only thing that kind of made it feel relevant, but I felt like that entire sequence was a massive waste of time as a viewer. I really did. Ultimately the inmate ends up, Karen tries to help him, and he ends up being basically locked, in a hallway where one door's locked, the other door's locked, and you have two massive mobs trying to break into this hallway to murder this dude cold-blooded because they think it's Michael, when Karen keeps trying to tell everyone that's not Michael. Laurie's trying to tell him that's not Michael, but everyone's like, including Tommy, has lost their shit and is chasing him all over the place and knocking over nurses. I mean, it's ridiculous. They're like a literal mob chasing the wrong guy. Massive waste of time in my mind. He ends up jumping out the window and killing himself because he's just like, there's no hope, whatever, there's no getting out. And that's when they point out, it's like, look what Michael's done to us. They turn us into monsters. That whole thing feels so just pointless. They also introduced like a romance sort of thing between Laurie and Sheriff Hawkins. Sheriff Hawkins is sharing the room with Laurie when he's brought to the hospital, and that doesn't take a lot of time. It's like maybe 5 minutes where they're kind of reminiscing about like when he kissed her and she held his hand and stuff and blah blah blah. And it's just like, I don't feel like that's necessary for this movie. I genuinely don't, unless they're setting up for something bigger in the third movie where like Sheriff Hawkins will actually die, because Sheriff Hawkins believes he needs to be the one to kill Michael. Laurie believes she needs to be the one to kill Michael. It's a whole thing. Laurie is under this impression that Michael's after her. Sheriff Hawkins points out, no, it's, that's not the case. Dr. Certain, this was all his thing. He brought Michael to you. I mean, that was his obsession. But that whole thing just felt very pointless. I don't see why we needed to introduce that romance into this film. I really don't, unless it's, again, setting up for like Sheriff Hawkins to officially die in the next one. For a majority of the movie, Laurie was under the impression that Michael was actually dead. Karen never told her the truth until it kind of got out. And that kind of felt, I mean, I can get it, from a daughter's perspective, worrying about her mother. Allison, she is like dead set blood hungry, wanting to hunt Michael with the mob, with Cameron. Lonnie is Cameron's father because, again, Michael killed their dad. So Allison's like full blown, like blood hungry, wanting to hunt Michael down. And you get the hunting of where everyone is trying to find Michael, including these random people, the nurse and the doctor, whatever. They're tagging into it. They don't know how to use a gun. And that's where you do get some pretty brutal kills. The shot that's in the trailer where Lindy comes to the kids in the park and say, "Oh, a white man's playing hide and seek with us." That scene, Michael ends up killing the nurse, Miriam, who again, that was from in the first movie, same actress and everything. The nurse guy, he gets stabbed in the eye. He tried to choke Michael out. So, hey, good on you for that. The chick, the doctor, dude, she died in such a stupid way, in my opinion. Michael's sitting in the driver's seat of the car, and she's approaching with a gun, shooting at the car, and Michael just kicks the door. When he does, it hits the gun in her hand and makes her turn around and shoot herself, and that's how she dies. Okay, good on you, I guess. That was kind of dumb again, and also throughout this, it's like just the scripting itself I thought was very poor. Just like the cheesy one-liners that Tommy kept delivering, where it's like, "I'm gonna get you, come and get me," just stuff like that. It's just like, it's just kind of cringy and just kind of stupid. So for the final act of the movie, Karen finally kind of decides to leave and, try to go after Michael as well. At this point, Lonnie is, all of his kills are leading up to Michael just going home, which, the people living in his home now is Big John and Little John, a gay couple who kept referring to themselves as Big John and Little John, which, I get you're both named John, but and I understand what you're going for there, but I don't know. I just felt it kind of weird that you continuously throughout every scene they were in had to deliver the Big John, Little John, Big John, Little John. I was just like, all right, guys, let's keep it cool. That's where Michael gets into their house and ends up murdering them. And for Little John, after he found, Big John's dead body, I don't know, Little John just, man, he didn't give a shit. He just embraced his death because, after he stands up and Michael's there at the window, staring out the window like he was a kid. And Little John, instead of doing something about it, he said, "Michael, so you finally returned home." And Michael just turns around, stares at him for a minute, and then just walks over and just murders him. Like, he just accepted it. All right, whatever, man. I guess you have an obsession with Michael, maybe. I don't know. So when it comes to, you know, those three entering the house, first it was Lonnie who went into the house alone. Cameron and Allison, they hear a gunshot, they go in there, and you know, so this is where, you know, it's like these sort of things you expect in a horror movie. You know, you expect this sort of stupidity in a horror movie, but like I feel like this movie really went over the top with it, where it's like a little bit too much for, in my opinion, where it's like, where's the common sense in this situation? Because they come into this house, they don't bother to try to turn on a single light. The electricity works in this house. That is very clear, because they even get up to a room, which is the John's study, and that's where they find the two dead bodies of John's, including a music playing. So, all right, shout out to Michael. I guess he enjoys some music because he's just vibing in this house right now, you know. But the electricity's on, the music's playing. Like electricity works, and I don't know, just the lack of common sense in the situation to maybe turn on some lights. Again, I get it's a horror movie, but like that sort of lack of common sense is throughout the entire movie. And it's just like, I can deal with it to points because we're used to this, but it's just like you kind of went over the top of lack of common sense. Like Allison going over and checking on the Johns, putting her weapon down, pulling a knife out of him. You know, Cameron then going into the hallway again. Turn on some lights, bud. That's where he finds his dad dead up above. Michael jumps out of a closet, starts stabbing Cameron. Allison comes in to help. Allison puts up a little bit of a fight. Shout out to that. She gets thrown down the stairs, gets her foot hurt, whatever. That's when Cameron brutally murdered, basically in front of her, because she keeps yelling at Michael to stop. And Michael's like, "Oh, so you like this guy? All right, well let me just murder him more. How's that?" And now another thing that they did absolutely right throughout this entire movie, and I wanted to save this right for this moment, because this moment alone, I've got to find this. I have got to find this because it was so incredible. But the Carpenters, man, they did such a great job with the score throughout the entire movie. And this particular scene was probably my favorite piece of the score, of after, you know, Michael kind of really fucks up Cameron. He's like hanging off the railing, whatever, and he steps to the top of the stairs, start walking out. That score, beautiful, absolutely phenomenal. I gotta find that part. I gotta find that one particular song because it was incredible. So that was one thing that was amazing throughout the movie, was the score. And I wanted to save talking about it for that moment, because that single moment really pushed me over, where I even said to John, who was sitting beside me, I was like, "Oh man, that is an awesome track." You know, once he comes down the stairs, you know, she tries putting up a fight against Michael, and then in comes Karen. Karen comes in to save the day, stabs Michael in the back with a pitchfork. You know, and ends up ripping his mask off, and it's just like, you know, it's like, you want someone, take me. You know, Michael was pissed because he did a fast walk here. Yeah, he did a fast walk. You know, he's mad if that's the case. He's maskless in this situation, and she leads him to the mob of people. All right, the giant mob of Haddonfield says the same line where it's like, "Gotcha." You know, she said that in the previous movie. And then everyone starts beating the shit out of Michael. Tommy, Sheriff Brackett's there, same actor, shout out to that. You know, Sheriff Brackett, again, with, you know, he sends a cringy one-liner just like everyone else, where it's like, Michael, everyone needs one good, you know, fright on Halloween. Cringy one-liners throughout the whole movie. And the amount, like, you know, when it comes to those, it's like everyone in the hospital chanting, "Evil dies tonight, evil dies." It's like, if I hear this one more time, I'm gonna lose it. Like, please stop. Like, yeah, please. You know, but everyone's beating the shit out of him. And this is another one of those moments of where it's like trademark horror movie thing. It's just like no common sense. Like, everyone stops. Like, they stop beating him at a point. It's like, don't stop, keep going. Even before this fight started, Michael's still maskless. His mask is dropped on the ground because, you know, Karen kind of set it there to, you know, basically lure him there or whatever. They let the guys get down and pick his mask up and put it back on. No, fuck that. There's a couple people in the crowd with a gun. Go ahead and start gunning his ass down. Again, I know it's a horror movie. I know these are cliches and tropes for it, but, you know, I can deal with that to a point, but when it's throughout the entire movie, it's just like, okay, this is getting a little bit too much of lack of common sense in these human beings that would never happen in these actual situations. Again, they beat the living shit out of Michael. Karen gets a good stab, like right around the back of his neck, whatever. You know, they're assuming he's dead. You know, once Karen is back with her daughter sitting on the Myers porch, whatever, police are there, you know, there's still like a couple, you know, the crowd is around Michael and stuff. And then Michael gets up and starts murdering all of them out of nowhere. You know, again, this dude's like not human, of course. We've seen this before. You know, murders Sheriff Brackett right off the bat. Rest in peace, Sheriff Brackett. You know, everyone else one by one starts getting murdering. And as as he's murdering them, Laurie's talking to Sheriff Hawkins with, more of these cringy lines of the more he kills, the more he transcends, the more powerful he becomes and stuff. It's just really, really stupid lines, honestly, for what this trilogy was trying to deliver, where with 2018 movie, they were really just trying to deliver this dude's just a psychopath, right? Because they got rid of like the sibling stuff, they got rid of the family ties, and they just made him as a psychopath. That's what they were going for. So now it feels like we're kind of flirting with the whole like demonic side of things that like Halloween 5 and obviously 6 really went through with the Cult of Thorn. And obviously I'm not saying they're doing that, but that's what it kind of feels like, because it's like, with how Laurie's lines are talking about how he transcends, the more he kills, the more he kills. It's like, it feels like we're flirting with that. And the fact that Michael took the beating he did and a knife through around like the neck or shoulder or whatever, and then he starts murdering everyone, including Tommy. Well, Tommy had a good run. I don't know, just it feels off to me, so that's why I'm kind of curious where Halloween Ends is going to take this. And then the final shot of the movie was Karen getting murdered. So Karen was murdered in this. She goes back up to that room where Michael would always stare out the window. And I was sitting here saying to John, again, she's in the Myers house, and I was sitting here saying, I'm like, John, I swear to God, if what's about to happen is going to happen, I'm going to be kind of upset. And it happened. Michael's behind her and starts stabbing her relentlessly. And the reason why I was upset about it is because, again, it makes no sense. Like, I know he was a few blocks over. But there's cops everywhere right now. It's like you got him. There's cops everywhere. There's cops everywhere in front of the Myers house. There are people literally right downstairs. Where did this man's got teleport, right? So I know a lot of this sounds like nitpicking, and I guess it kind of is, just because as a Halloween fan, you have such higher expectations of what you want out of it, from some of the greater movies that we have had in the past. And like I said, this movie, it did a lot of things right that, the score really kept me in throughout the whole movie. Now, one thing that this movie had zero of is tension. I feel like this movie had no tension whatsoever. The little bit that 2018 had, this one had none. 2018 had a few good shots of tension throughout the movie. All right, a few good ones, like the kid in that guy's backyard that gets the fence murder or whatever. That tension of the lights continuing to turn on and off, and him like disappearing, getting close or whatever. Great tension there. The Michael versus Laurie in the house, that was awesome amount of tension. Like the tension they had in the first one, great. The tension in this one, zero, none, absolutely zero. This is just like, I don't know, it almost feels like they kind of flirted with like Rob Zombie's approach of just making it very in-your-face, brutal carnage, which, again, the carnage was fantastic if you're a fan of Carnage candy, but for a Halloween movie, I don't know, the fear factor, the dread as you're watching it is one thing that I feel like really makes the movies better. And this movie just didn't deliver it for me. The ending, like I said, I didn't care for the ending at all. The ending just kind of killed it for me. I'm still going to go see Halloween Ends. I'm a Halloween diehard fan. But like, I'm not going to go into it like overly pumped. I can definitely say that. And out of these David Gordon Green movies, 2018, in my opinion, was not only better than Halloween Kills, but immensely better than Halloween Kills. Like, it's not even close about how much better 2018 is from this one. I do think this movie is worth a watch, but I gotta say, unless you're a Halloween diehard, don't go see it in theaters. I'm gonna go ahead and say it up front. Just go ahead and save your money on that front and wait for it to come to like streaming, or rent it for cheap at Redbox, or rent it for like $3 on Amazon or wherever you rent stuff. Just wait for that. Unless you're a Halloween diehard like me and you've seen every single movie 1,000 times, don't go see it in theaters. I'm gonna go ahead and say it up front. If I had to give the movie a rating, like maybe a 5 or a 6 out of 10, maybe a 6. I'll bump it up to a 6 because the Carnage candy was fantastic. The score was great, and the opening shot of the movie was incredible. So I'll give it a 6, maybe a 6.5 to give it a little credit for that opening sequence and everything. But everything else is just like, there's so much that just kind of felt empty about it. And it is worth a watch. If you're a Halloween fan, it's worth a watch. I just don't know if it's worth the watch in theater unless you're a diehard. But have you guys seen the movie? If you have, comment down below your thoughts on the movie. Am I on an island here, or is there some, or is everyone kind of on the same boat? I feel like I might not be on an island. I feel like a lot of people may feel the same, at least from stuff that I've seen. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. Make sure to check out the other podcasts here at Sparky 3, like Loudhearted Gamers, AniMan Plus, Terrible Football Show, and all that stuff. Go check out the other Talking About Movies and Stuff episode, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. And like I said, don't have expectations for this show. An episode will come out when it comes out. I will say some future movies that are on our slate is I know I am going to see Eternals. I don't know if I'm going to go see it with someone, but I'm going to see Eternals for sure. Spider-Man, of course. Me and John want to go see the Rocky IV director's cut that's coming out next month. And there's a couple other horror movies that's coming out that actually look pretty dope. Dune kind of has my interest. I think that's coming out soon. Resident Evil comes out in November. So there are some other movies and stuff that are coming out. I still have plans to do episodes focused on some TV shows as well, because I haven't got a chance to really talk about like WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, or Loki, and I'd really like to, because I really loved all three of those. I really would like to dive into all three of those with someone. Probably my buddy Josh, who's my co-host over at AniMan Plus. Probably me and him will dive into it. Maybe Jimmy as well. Jimmy's watched them, so may talk to him about it. He's a big Marvel guy. But yeah, if you enjoyed this, give us a like on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, or if you're listening to this on podcast format on like the 50,000 platforms we may or may not be on, react in whatever way accordingly. That's it. All right, bye. This is Talking About Movies and Stuff. See ya.